When we talk about change, and let me be really clear about change. Change is not, when I speak of change today, I'm not talking about someone who says, I want to buy a new house, but I don't have the money for a new house, I'm not changing. That's not what the change I'm talking about, because I understand there might be a financial obstacle to that to get there, and there's going to be behaviors that they can do, that they can change, that could lead to them getting that house. So I'm speaking more about the behaviors. When somebody talks about wanting to change, they're doing a behavior that they don't want to be doing. They're doing something that is behaviorally leaving them unempowered. They're doing something that is leaving them playing life at a smaller level. They're doing something that dims their light and prevents them from shining. These are the types of things I'm really going to be focusing on today, because it's these things that are really making up the meaning and greater context of our life. If we think about it, I mean, just think about this conceptually for a moment. In the United States, and I don't remember when this survey or study was done, it was reported that most people surveyed, and by most, it's an overwhelming majority, something like 75% of them, 74, 75%, were told that the best thing that could happen for them in their life, the most life-changing and profound change, if they could have anything happen for them, this would be it, would be if they were to win the lottery. If they were to win the lottery because they thought or they felt or they believed that if they win, it will create immediate and lasting and profound change for their life. Now, statistically, we know that something like 92, 93% of people who win the lottery go on to be more unhappy, more miserable, and in worse shape financially than they were before they won the lotto. But yet people still believe that's going to make the difference. Now, why is it that we think money is going to be the answer to everything? Right? Is it really because we want these little pieces of paper? Can they buy stuff? Can they make life easier? Can they enhance the quality of life? Absolutely. But it's not the money that we're after. We're after the meaning, the emotion, the feeling that we feel that we're going to get because of the money. We're after what we believe we will feel, or how the money's going to make us feel when we do these things. We're after what we think we'll feel when we get to be able to go on a plane to our vacation to Hawaii or something like that. You see, the money is just a facilitator to that which we really want. And I want to preface that because so many times we have these obstacles to change, and a lot of them will stem around belief systems, things that we hold dear. Here are not necessarily we hold dear, but we hold on to. I think the three things I want to touch on today now, and that doesn't mean that these three things are a definitive list. These are three big common ones. And I think we could really categorize them as three big fears. And the first fear I want to touch on today is the fear of what if I can't? The fear of what if I can't? What do I mean by that? Well, how many of you, by a show of hands, hearts, thumbs up, or whatever, have ever had something that you wanted to do, something you wanted to try, but then you heard that voice pop up and say, oh, what if you can't? Or maybe you shouldn't do that, or that's probably not you, or you may not be able to, or, that might be a little out of your league. Right? I think if we're all honest, we probably all felt that at some point. But then what happens? See, once we do that, then we start to talk ourselves out. We start to create a narrative, so to speak, about all the reasons why we can't. And then we can create some whoppers too, can't we? I mean, I don't know about any of you, but I've come up with reasons why I can't, because if I try, there might be dragons that pop up and they prevent me from getting to where I want to go, and then I'll be cast away to a fiery doom. Is that a little dramatic? Yes, and it's an example of how dramatic we can be sometimes in our stories, right? Some of us have to work really hard to convince ourselves of if we can't. And we will literally have to concoct a bedtime story, a horror story of Edgar Allan Poe-esque magnitude or maybe not Edgar Allan Poe, we'll say more of a Stephen King-esque magnitude, to convince us what would happen if we try. So we tell ourselves over and over again what we can't, right? How we would risk life and limb literally to do this thing. And most of us aren't willing to put that kind of risk on ourselves. Most of us aren't willing to face the demons and the creatures that go bump in the night, and so instead we settle for less than what we could. Because we concoct these stories about what if we can't. Anybody relate to that? Anybody resonate with that? And in so doing, we keep ourselves in a space where we never have to, put ourselves out there, which I'll come back to in a little bit. But we keep ourselves limited. We keep ourselves stuck. We keep ourselves holding back because we think that we can't, or we fear that if we can't. Because think about this. What would it mean to you if you tried? I mean, you absolutely tried your absolute hardest, and then it didn't work out. Sometimes we have these encounter in relationships, right? We go into a relationship, we give our heart, we give it our all, and then the person still leaves. Sometimes this happens in business. We give everything. We give our heart, we try, we give our blood, our sweat, our tears, and then the deal still falls through. Sometimes we get this in our health. We eat right, we train, we exercise, we eat greens and vegetables and lean meats, and we do all the things they say we're going to do, and we still get cancer. Sometimes it happens in our personal and our family lives. We are the best parents. We raise our kids. We love them and everything else. And then they still make a wrong decision, or bad decisions rather. And if we see the world in that way, and we look at it as risking and potentially not achieving equals ultimate pain, meaning that we try and it still doesn't work out, then we'll always fear about what if something can't, and we never will. Right? Because it's not worth the risk to us in that sense. Right? When we put it on that level of magnitude, and if we don't have a full belief in ourselves to do it, we will concoct a story about why we can't to protect ourselves from ever trying. I really want you to think about that last piece, and I encourage you to write it down. If we do not believe that we can, we will concoct a story about why we can't to keep ourselves safe from ever trying. I say safe in parentheses and quotation marks because any of you who have ever done this before and played a life for safety versus potential know that that ends up being a far more painful existence than going for what you truly want, isn't it? So that's the first one. The second one that usually is a big obstacle for us about why we don't change is this fear or this concern or this worry of what will others think? What will others think? What will others think? What will they think? I want you all to do this, okay? And just try this out for me really quick. I need some interaction from you all. I want you to just sit, stand, wherever you are, and think about you doing something really special and other people not necessarily accepting it or celebrating, or are they thinking ill of yourself. And just when you have that thought in your mind, or that image in your mind, I want you to ask yourself the question, what will others think, while holding that image in your mind? And then on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being you feel awful, and 10 being you feel really good, just type in the number that you feel. So again, you're thinking about you doing something really special and people not accepting it, not celebrating it. You feeling bad about that. And then ask yourself, while you hold that image in your mind, what will others think? And on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 feeling awful and 10 feeling great, write down what number you feel. Because I want you to test something. I want you to have an experience of this, and I encourage you to give yourself that. I was reading something the other day that I got a 1. Thank you. That's an honest 1, too. I was reading something the other day about how we retain information. If we just listen passively, kind of like we all are, there's a 3, we'll retain like 5-10% of information. If we actually actively engage in the process, it increases it up to like a 60%. So it's huge. It's substantial, the difference it is. So now that you've gotten a chance to experience that, what I want you to do is clear your mind and then think of instead about you doing something where you do something really special, that same thing, but instead this time people are celebrating it. People are congratulating you. People are thinking what you did was wonderful, it was amazing. And as you hold that new image in your mind about how it feels to be celebrated, welcomed, congratulated by people, I want you to ask yourself, what do people think? What do people think? What will others think? And then write down same scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being you feel pretty awful to 10 feeling really, really good. What do you feel now? And notice if the numbers changed. I'll give you all a minute to do that while I take a quick sip of water. 8, 12, 7, 10, and I think, Amy, were you at a 3 before, so I went from a 3 to a 10. Great exercise, 10. So I see some 10s coming in, 10 plus, 10. Okay, I want you all to notice this. Thank you so much. I see a 5 just went to a 10. 10s, there's lots of 10s coming up now. Notice that. All that changed was your perception, right? How you looked at the potential outcome. See, most of us, when we're in this place and we're confronting the possibility of change, we will hold in our mind an image of people thinking ill, poorly, not lovingly, negatively, whatever that is of ourselves. And because of that, and because most of us don't want to feel how we were feeling the first time, we'll avoid it, right? Why the hell would we want to risk feeling a 1 or a 2 when we can, again, play it safe and stay at a 4 or 5? Does this make sense? Why in the hell would we want to risk getting to a 1 or 2? We don't even think about the 10, right? Even though everybody feels 7, 8s, 9s, and 10s, we don't even want to think about those numbers, right? We're only focusing on what the bad part could be. Why would we want to risk a 1 or 2 when we could stay safe at a 4 or 5? Isn't it interesting that we talk about change and the possibility and potential of change, but when we do, we don't even acknowledge when we're making these decisions at an unconscious level the potential payoff about what life would be like at 9s and 10s, or 12s or 10 pluses like some of you got to. Instead, we settle for less because we tell ourselves a narrative about why it won't work. Again, we're conjuring up our inner Stephen King, and now we've added to our story about all the bad things that the other people out there will say, do, or think, or feel. And that we'll go through this change, and then we'll be there all alone. And nobody will be there to congratulate us, sending us a high five. And because we focus on life in that way, instead of risking the 1 or 2s, we settle for the 3, 4s, and 5s. Never realizing that the other side of that risk is 7, 8s, 9s, 10s, and beyond. Okay, so that's number 2. The last one I want to talk about today, and then we'll open up for some questions, is when the reason that we will resist change or refuse to change is because so many of us get conditioned in life to play a low-risk, low-reward game. I've already kind of touched on this a little bit throughout other pieces of it, so you'll see this all tied together now. A low-risk, low-reward game. At 3, 4, and 5, level 3, 4, and 5, it's not ideal. It's not what we want. But it's fairly riskless, isn't it? Now, any of you who have ever lived life at a 3, 4, or 5 and sustained it and gotten to a place where you've gotten to 8s, 9s, and 10s beyond, you know how risky it is. Because you've been there and you know how terrible that was, but because that was what you were so familiar with, you didn't think there was anything worse, or you didn't think there was anything better. And you sure as hell weren't going to do anything to shake the boat so much to make it worse. But for those of us who have never been beyond that, we'll play this low risk, low reward game. If I don't try, then I can't fail. If I don't do my best, then I can't fall on my face and realize my best wasn't good enough. If I only love a little, then I don't have to risk getting my heart broken. If I'm 1 foot in and 1 foot out, I can never get hurt. If I busy myself with being busy, then I never have to put all in on my business. If I sit here and wait for the ideal time, then I can always keep waiting because I'll always be able to find another reason why I can't. See, I truly believe that the biggest risk in life is riskless living. Well, what I mean, this doesn't mean that you need to hop aboard a motorcycle and go do some Evel Knievel-esque jump, or that you need to, start doing some sort of crazy stunts or anything like that. It doesn't mean that at all. That's not the risk I'm talking about. The risk I'm talking about is the risk of living your life at the best you could. It's a risk of being able to achieve, do, act, and breathe in your greatest self. Most of us never gift ourselves with that because most of us are unwilling to risk trying to do that. Because most of us don't want to face failure. Most of us don't want to confront the what ifs you can't. And most of us don't want to look past the belief of, what if somebody's not there to celebrate me, or what will they think of me instead? We settle for small instead of going for big. We never step up to the plate when we have the opportunity to. Instead, sit on the dugout watching life passing by. We say we want to wait for our coach to put us in, but we're not willing to step up to the plate. And in so doing, what happens is we find ourselves in these conundrums, these stories, these stuck states. And this is what leads to the big payoff right here. The payoff is why we subscribe to these three things, why we do these three things, consciously or unconsciously. I believe most people are doing these unconsciously. And I also think that when it comes to a point of change where they arrive at the crossroads, I think most people, when they get to the crossroads, they see the potential for change on one side. But then they look over there and they see all these potential things that could go wrong. And so they say, this is a little safer over here. I feel a little more comfortable over here. I mean, I really want what's over here, but I don't know if I'm willing to risk going over here. And so the payoff from all this is, and why we do this, is because when we have these fears lingering around, when we have these behaviors following us, it allows us to justify why things are as they are. And they give us story to add to our narrative. They give us language to add to our narrative. They give us content to add to our stories. See, we keep these things around specifically for a reason, because they help us justify keeping things as they are. I don't know about you, but I've yet to meet one person who says they want to change and really sincerely they say they want to change, but they don't want to change. I really believe that everybody says everyone who says they want to change or knows they need to make a change does want to make a change. But most of them don't, because they have all these other things happening that help them justify staying where they are. Right? What a wonderful justification it is to not wanting to fail. Right? Fuck, I don't want to put myself out there. I could fail, I could fall down, I could land on my face, people could laugh at me. It's better to stay here. What a wonderful story it is to say, well, I would have done that, but this person did this and this person said that, and it made me feel like I couldn't do it, so I decided not to. What a wonderful story it is. And when I say wonderful, I'm saying wonderful in the sense of you can add depth to it in the narrative, because what a wonderful story it would be that you really, really wanted to do something. You really wanted to go for your new business. You really wanted to have that relationship with yourself. You really wanted to heal who you are inside and live the life that you know you can live. That life that you can feel within in those moments of quiet honesty with yourself. But we don't, because once upon a time, someone or something told us that we could or we couldn't do those things. And so we start to believe ourselves and we say, you know what, I really want to be at a 9 or 10, but I'm going to just settle for a 3 or 4, because at least I know where I stand at 3 or 4. Here's the thing. If I was willing to guess, I would guess that each and every one of you has had one of those moments of quiet honesty I've mentioned just a little bit ago. And you know exactly what I'm talking about, because those are the moments where you don't think, but you feel that there's something more for you. You don't think, but you feel that you have the capability, the potential inside of you to do more, to do great things, to have the relationship you've always wanted, to build the business you want, to have the level of wealth, health, and fitness that you've always wanted. Most of you have had that feeling inside of you that life could be more. And you may have found yourself looking at somebody from a distance, perhaps on TV or something, and saying, gosh, I wish I could have what they have. My life would be complete if I could live like they are. My friends, you can, but you have to change what's holding you back from getting there. Now, in a moment, I'm going to open up for questions, but really quick, I'm going to tell you what I want to do to help you do that. Some of you on here are new, and I've never had a chance to speak with you one-on-one before. And if that's you, what I would love to do is sit down and talk with you, and it's a complimentary strategy session with me. You and I will be meeting one-on-one, and in this strategy session, what we're going to do is we're going to dig in and figure out what exactly it is that's holding you back, and what the next steps are for you to change, and how I can help you do that along the way. This is a special offer for you, and if you are here and you're motivated for some change, if you're motivated to really push and build on what we've talked about, I encourage you to take advantage of this. I've put a link here on Facebook And I will put a link here in the comments so that you guys can access it there. Instagram, unfortunately, you are going to have to pop over to Facebook to be able to get the link. And if you pop over and you were just on the chat, you can do that. But it'll be right here on the 1 Year 1000 Challenge page to access that. The way it works is you just click on the link. You're going to fill out a short little application about what's going on. Give me some feedback about what's happening, and then you'll be able to pick a time that works best for you and I to meet. And it can be a really powerful thing. And this is where change begins. Change begins with recognizing that we want to change, we need to change, and we may have some obstacles, some setbacks, some challenges in the face of change. I think one of the greatest gifts we can have is give ourselves a second set of eyes. I tell every client I work with that my role in their life is to, when somebody gets to this point where they're ready to make the leap and they're ready to get over here, but they can't because of fear, because of what's holding them back, because they think that there's only one way over, and that's a scary way. I say that my mission, my goal, my role in somebody's life is to be able to take them by the hand, act as a guide, and be able to show them this hidden bridge that they couldn't see before, that was once obscured by the fog and the darkness. And I have this light that I can help guide them, and then together we'll go to the other side and really start living life in the way that that feeling has told you all along that you were born to live. All right, I hope this was of help to you all. Did you find value in this? And I can take questions now. So any questions at all, I will scan up and down on Facebook and Instagram. Let's see what questions you have. Thank you so much for all the hearts and the thumbs up and the emojis and the comments and everything thus far. I really appreciate it. And those of you who have shared this with your friends and family and invited them to join in, it sincerely means a lot to me that you would do that. I really, really hope some of you are going to take advantage of the strategy session offer. And if you are going to do that, why don't you just maybe type in "I'm in," and that way I know I can keep an eye out for you and follow up with you over the next couple of days and make sure we get you on the schedule. Again, this is for somebody, if you know you want to change, you're ready to make some changes, you really want to dive into this, the next step, please take advantage of this. Jesse has been an amazing coach to help me with the ICANN process. Oh, thanks, Fi. I appreciate that. Highly recommend Jesse. He's unbelievable at helping you make the changes you need. He truly has helped me hugely in my life's journey. Don't hesitate. It's a free session. Why not? See what he can do for you. Oh, thanks, Faith. I really appreciate that. I'm very blessed to have some of my people on here as well, and who I've been able to work with closely. So, and don't take my word for it. Take theirs. Please, if this resonates with you, take me up on my offer for the strategy session. In the meantime, let's talk questions. I'm in Sanderson 7779. Awesome. So just pop over onto Facebook, and there will be a link right there, and you'll be able to access that link and book it. I'm looking forward to meeting with you. Questions? What questions we have? I have a few minutes for them, and I want to make sure I address those. If you asked a question earlier, I likely didn't see it because I was really trying to stay focused on what I wanted to say to you all. So if you don't mind just copying and pasting it, retyping it, I will answer them now. I feel like my voice is wanting to take a vacation. How do you figure out whether or not change is worth the risk? That's a great question. And the answer I would say to you is, if you did the exercise earlier on where I talked about imagining the two different scenarios and you felt a noticeable difference, that's your answer right there, and that it is worth it. The other thing too is when we sometimes assess risk with change, we focus on what the risk is if we don't, right? Well, what's the risk in trying to change? My bigger question, I think, and what's really important to ask is, what do we risk if we don't? Right? What do we risk if we don't change? Think about that. Most of you who need to change or want to change for a variety of reasons. Perhaps change will lead to an improvement in your business. Perhaps change will lead to an improvement in your relationship. Perhaps change will bring about a profound shift in your health and fitness. Perhaps change will create a breakthrough in the way you think and feel about yourself and your relationship with self. What happens if you don't change? Meaning, what happens if you don't try? How will you continue to feel about yourself? What will your business continue to be like? What will your health and fitness continue to be? I've met with people before who change was literally a life or death matter for them. And I think for most of us it is, because it doesn't mean that some of us are going to die right away if we don't change. What it does mean is that some of us are never going to truly live if we don't change. Right? Some of us will never truly live if we don't change. And I really want you to think about that. If you have that question about, is it worth the risk? My question to you would be, is it worth the risk to continue to live life, or to live life, not to imply that this is you, but to live life not truly living, when change is available to you and it's available to all of us? Really good question. What other questions you all have? Does being told you can't for so many years from other people hold you back even when deep down inside you know you can? Yeah, absolutely. We will have, you think about the past words, what we're taught. Go back to school, right? So much of how we exist, we interact with, we see the world, we understand things is based off of what we were taught in school, or more specifically, what we learned. And learning has layers, right? Learning has layers. It's really hard to look at a word you know how to read and read it in any way other than you hear the word sound. For example, if I were to pronounce 2 and 2, those of you who are really good at grammar, I'm not. But when somebody writes the wrong version of 2 down, it stands out like a sore thumb, doesn't it? And in so doing, in that same idea, when we are told, and the reason that it does is because we're told over and over again about what it's supposed to be, how we're supposed to use the word, what context it's supposed to use, and the correct way to use it, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. It's the same true for anything that we were told once upon a time about why we can't, or how we're unable to, or if we're not this, or if we're not that. We are told these things, and what happens is when we're told it enough, we end up just deciding to believe it. Now, we may not believe it. We may not choose to believe it consciously. It may be something that we're involuntarily taking in, or we're just taught that we're supposed to learn from and respect our elders, so we might as well. Or if we see somebody we know, or as authority figure, somebody we believe we trust or like, that what they say should be the gospel. See, most of us aren't taught to question or ask questions. Most of us are taught to accept. And acceptance can be a huge detriment when it comes to change, because one of the first places we'll accept is we'll accept for how things are, instead of going for what we want things to be. Good question. I have time for 2 more, and there's 2 more on Facebook, so I'll leave you the last 2 questions. Why do we fear those crossroads when some of us have been through some really big fears already and had no choice but to conquer them? It's a good question. Because in the moment, Stacy, when we are confronted with that, most of us will value and put more emotion in our story than our future. Most of us will put more emotional weight on our fears than our potential. And what happens is, when we have whatever we're most emotional about, we're usually going to do. Right? The person who knows they shouldn't eat sweets, but yet they still eat sweets because at the time they're really emotional. And they're more emotional towards sweets, and they're more emotional to get away from sweets. Now, there's a lot of layers in that too, but the reason is because most of us, when it gets time to make a decision about changing, we will start to talk ourselves out of it and convince ourselves otherwise. Remember too, our fears give us a justification. And a lot of us, we may not want to risk living our life that way without being able to fall back on and blame someone else. See, if we can justify, then we can blame. And when we can blame, we don't have to take full responsibility. And it's a luxury sometimes that we have, that we can find fault in others for why our life's not working the way we want. But at the end of the day, it's called our life for a reason, because it's our life. And it's in the words of some wise teachers, it's our life, it's now or never. We're not going to live forever. Oh, I thought that was really funny. I'll give bonus points to whoever gets the pop culture reference. The last question, then we're going to wrap up. I wonder if this doesn't apply to those who are more internally motivated and were risk takers as a norm. I would like to take advantage of the free interaction. I wonder if this doesn't apply to those who are more internally motivated and were risk takers as a norm. I would like to take advantage of the free interaction. You know, it really, I sort of more internal moving. I think I understand your question, Gail, and I'm going to try my best to understand it. If it doesn't come across exactly, please forgive me because that's just my misinterpretation of it. I would say it depends on what you define taking a risk as. See, I think each and every one of us has inside of us a risk-taking knack or risk-taking part of ourselves. It's just how that shows up physically in our lives differs from person to person. Some people are going to take big, overt physical risks. They're going to jump on a motorcycle and go do all these crazy flips and jumps and whatnot. Others are going to do less things. I'm not much of a physical risk taker like that. I've had a number of injuries and bumps and stuff the last few years. I'm long past those days for myself where I want to do those things. I want to do things physically, but I'm definitely not going to do physical risks that put my body at additional harm. It's just the benefit there, the potential risk reward isn't worth it for me. For others, they might be really great at doing physical risk, but they might not be willing to take the emotional risk, opening up all the way, loving fully, letting go of some sort of pain that they've been holding on to, releasing some sort of baggage they've been carrying around. Really what it comes down to is what those people who are the most successful at taking risk are the ones who are able to channel the most emotion into the actions they need to take the risk. Somebody who is doing something physical, there's an immediate payoff, right? I do this physically, then I get this, I get to feel this, blah, blah, so there's emotion in it. For other things like relationships or our health or our money or our businesses, those sometimes can be harder to get the emotion behind. Now you'll see some people do it really successfully. And those are usually the people who have the best relationships, the best businesses, and so on and so forth. But doesn't mean they're able to do it in all other areas of their life. So to answer your question, I think everybody has that ability to do that, but it depends on what risk is for them, and it depends on what emotions they're able to access. Most of us do not get there or do it because we keep too many of our emotions locked up, and we have walls, obstacles, blocks, whatever we want to call them, that are obstructing our ability from accessing those emotions. That's why, again, I offer these strategy sessions to you all to try to help, because I sincerely believe, and I know, and I've seen it time and time again, that when we're able to unlock and unblock that which is holding us back, life changes like that. It can change like that, but again, so many of us won't. I talk with people every single day about coaching, and they will sit there and tell me, I believe this will help me. But then the little fear voice starts popping up, and back to the initial question that was asked, they make a decision based off of the fear in the moment as opposed to the belief and the potential and the future that they're going for. They choose to value their fear more than their future. And when we're in that dynamic, when we're valuing our fear more than our future, that's where we get stuck. And that's where we really struggle to move forward. And that's why someone like myself would love to have the opportunity to help those of you who would like that. All right, everybody, that's it for today. Thank you so much for all the